What's going on, guys? I'm going to take you on a little walkthrough tour of one of my reservoir boats and show you how I set up my boats for catching trophy brown trout on New York City reservoirs. We'll go over the boat, gear and setup, and then also some of the gear and tackle that used and how I incorporate it with the boat. Alright, gonna go over the new boat setup. It's 12-foot Grumman that I will be putting on the Shokan reservoir in a couple days. So let's go over this boat, kind of show you how I utilize the different accessories and go about it, some of the gear, and how I use it. And the way I set up my boats, I can basically take any of my accessories here, like these rod holders, and jump into any of my boats simply by just adding these Scotty base mounts. Once the boat's outfitted with those, I have a plethora of Scotty accessories, everything from camera mounts, rod holders, rod holder extensions, transducer mounts. So speaking of transducer mounts, got a couple options here. Currently on my better setup fish finder, this is the one I'm using. It's a pretty good setup. It's not as convenient as this. I do like the Scotty mount version a little better. This one in particular is a track mount. So one of my other boats, I have another Scotty mount back here. I mount it back here, and then I can just tip that up as needed. So it's a little quicker, a little easier to adjust. But I already have this fish finder on here, so I'm going to leave it on and just use that between all the different boats I have for the most part. The other end of that, this is my battery box. Pretty simple setup. It's just a sealed ammo box with a pass-through for the power cord to get up to the unit itself. This actually stemmed originally from my kayak fishing, like a lot of my accessories did. This was my original battery box for the kayak. I could also take that transducer mount and mount it right on this track mount here and have it off this, and I used to use this as my ice fishing fish finder. That was the whole hopper. So now rod holder wise, I tend to use a lot of bait cast equipment. I'll get into that of exactly why. But for bait cast in particular, which you can use these for spinning reels, but these trolling rod holders here are quick release. Serves me a lot of advantages versus your standard rod holder. One, they're in there secure. I mean, they are not going anywhere. So often, I might get doubled up on fish. I'm able to reel down and hook that fish without the rod falling out, and then while the fish is on, I know it's going to stay there until I can get to it. And here's the perfect clip of these rod holders in action and why I like them so much. Oh man, we're doubled up. I have no idea what that is. Hopefully a trout too. Oh, jumped into the net luckily. This feels good too. Right here, we're running circle hook, so that kind of aids that process. I don't have to take the rod out of the holder, set the hook, literally just reel down on the fish. And here's a clip of that, for example. You'll also notice too, little bait keeper. Those work wonders for keeping your bait into place so it doesn't end up foul hooked back into the bait and then you miss the fish. These rods in particular have a very soft tip. That allows the circle hook to do its job. Anytime I'm bait fishing with circle hooks, key factor is soft rod tip. That's exactly what you want. Now, this rod is so soft that it does such a good job at letting the circle hook hook the fish itself that I don't even need the bait runner. But the beautiful thing about a line counter is you have one. So if you really need a bait runner, you got it. when I see marks on the screen, I could drop down to exactly where they're at, try to catch that fish. If it doesn't work out, I can reel back up and know where I'm at. No more stripping line 2, 4, 6, 8. And when you're by yourself and you're just rowing along with your bait, it really comes in handy to be able to drop your, if this process is quick, that only is going to help you. If it's a little breezy out, you don't want to be fighting with your lines, trying to get your line set and spun around and off track. These triple rod holder extensions give me a little wiggle room and versatility. Each boat's a little different on the layout and where and how I might put some of these mounts. So what this does, it gives me a little more adjustability. Every little bit makes a difference, because you got to keep in mind you need clearance for your oars. So you need to be able to row efficiently without being impeded or anything in your way. But you also want to be, have as best access as you can to your rod holders. And also the position of your rod holders, you want them to be spread out in relationship to each other enough so that when you got 2 people on board, or even a third person, everything's spread out enough. To help that, spread out baits even more, I might run some down lines, but then off the back of the boat, to get an additional rod off, we'll run a slip bobber. These floats right here in particular are my favorite, these Aero floats. I tend to run mostly all 3/4 ounce, usually nothing less than 1/2 ounce. I like the heavier end, keeps your baits down. I tend to slow troll my live bait too, so running on the heavier end ensures that my depth stays accurate and that stays slid all the way to the bobber stop. And also your line angle isn't as steep and kicked back, so it doesn't vary your depth as much when you're on the move versus sitting. Another addition here, it was a nice little addition. Little flush mount for the seat if you just need a quick somewhere to stick a rod, or just a different angle, trolling a rod out the back. Just a convenience thing, as well as this. Mounted one of these up here, so it's out of the weight of any seating, but it gives me just somewhere else to put an additional rod, particularly standing up. If I bring out a sabiki rig to jig up my own bait, I want to be able to keep that rod standing up out of the way, not getting tangled in everything else. Bait bucket here, where I run a 5-gallon setup, and for about 25 bucks or less online on Amazon, got this super quiet pump. It's super quiet, and the only reason you even hear as much as you do is because you hear the air stones with water in there. It's almost no audible. And that's a beautiful thing, because typically those air pumps, they're obnoxiously loud. If you're recording a video, it ruins the audio in your video. It just overtakes everything. It's just as bad as having constant wind noise. So that's super, super key. And honestly, you don't want noise and vibration translating through the boat. I mean, we're downline fishing as shallow as 10 feet below the boat in super clear water. So the quieter and more stealth you could be is always going to be the better. That's why I also like running the slip bobber out the back of the boat as my shallow line. The shallower the line, typically the more I would prefer it to be away from the boat. It doesn't have to be, but it's always going to help. Seat, just a typical clamp-on seat, super convenient. Sometimes I lock them down with the boat. Other times I bring them with me. Depends on if it's a spot where I could use my cart. I might just take it with me. So, wheels on the back here. These are Brocraft wheels, quick release setup. You just pinch that and you can fold them up. Really great for obviously moving the boat, but even launching too. I'll never have to scrape the back of the boat to get it in or out of the water. So, a nice boat like this, I want to keep it nice for as long as possible. This thing could last a lifetime. Another thing to help that, I added a keel guard to the bottom. This is the same kind of keel guard you see guys adding to their bass boats and things like that. This was a little tricky. I had to split it in half, modify it, had to really prep it extra good to get it to stick. Wasn't the easiest, but I think it's worth it. When you use these boats a lot, especially on a steeper rocky bank, you got to really ram the bank. And just doing that for years over and over and over, you know, if you're going to get a leak, it's going to be in the front of the boat and or the back of the boat where you pull it in and drag it out. So we got both of those bases covered with this. So I have every intent on this being a nice boat for a long time to come. And there's going to be a lot of fish caught in this. So another thing I'm going to add, just the cleat up here, I'll be doing that soon. That's just going to go up front. That's going to primarily be for the anchor. Another nice thing with this bait bucket setup, having the cart allows me to also utilize this crate, which is nice because now I have additional storage rod holders. So really I have 3, 4, up to 5 storage rod holders. And then I could have up to 6 fishing rod holders, which really more because of these. Another nice thing about these too, gives me additional camera mount options. So often I'll have one here, my rod holder. I'll have my camera mount here so it's quickly accessible. Speaking of camera, got this mount here. I can't show you with the camera itself, but basically there's a quick clip. I can take it off, throw it on here real quick, get my picture of the fish very quickly, get the fish back, unclip that, and then put it back on whatever other mount I'm using, usually a head mount. So super convenient. This seat here, this is just an old seat out of my low right there. The mounting holes on the bottom are stripped out, so I can't mount it on a post, but they work fine just sitting there. I mean, usually I never had any issues just plopping one on the seat and then somebody has a comfortable seat. If you're rowing, I prefer one of these because at least they're mounted there. Well, all these accessories, these all can go on any one of my kayaks, any one of my boats. So just like that, I can set up the next boat. And that's the idea. So once I buy these accessories, I'm only buying them once. I'm not buying them, you know, a handful of different rod holders for every boat every time I go out. So I guess I'll talk a little bit about mounting these Brocraft wheels I have here. So with these, this was a little trickier on this boat. With this boat, I got this transom board here and this rail, so I had to take this off and avoid these. To do that and have them where I wanted, I needed to move these handles. So there was a lot of little modifications, and it was a little tricky. I had just enough room to get them where they needed in the right spot. These handles were already here. Problem with that is they're kind of in the way of where I wanted to put it. I prefer to have the wheels outside of that for a wider stance. Some of the issues I ran into with that. Right here you can kind of see there's a serial number plate and a Grumman logo plate. Those are all in the way. The other side's pretty clean, so ideally I'd like to have it match on each side. Some of the problems were, besides those plates being in the way, was additional rivets, so I grinded that down smooth, so it's not going to impede me having sitting this flush and getting a good seal, because once I get this all ready to finalize my mounting, you know, I will be putting plenty of sealant behind there. Alright, to get that far, we had a 2x4 here for the transom. Right here, some through holes where the handles were installed there. Had it all glued down, so that's just a big mess for me to clean up. So I got this side cleaned up, went inside, grinded down the rivets from the back, and hammered them with this punch. Get them out. The serial plate and the logo plate
I'll just rivet on somewhere more convenient after the fact. So basically I put a square on here. Because of this corner plate, I couldn't get a good square off here. This was in the way. So I made a little starter line somewhere where I know I could get straight. Got this in the ballpark enough. And then measured at a few points so that when I squared this up and made my line, I could verify that it was straight to the line that I know was square. So this should be pretty straight. From that point, and here, I'm actually utilizing an existing hole for that plate rather than drill another hole. Now all these holes, they're going to be above the water line. And then when I put this transom board back in, just how you see all the glue here, it's going to be re-glued. So basically, any little holes that are going to be in here, one, they're above the water line. Two, everything's going to get sealed up nicely. So I'm not too worried about that. Once I got this far, marked my hole with a Sharpie. For now, I got a prick punch. Now I'm going to drill that out. Get this all set. And then clean up the other side. Do the same thing from that. But it worked out, and I'm really satisfied with that. I think the theory is I'm going to buy more of these, just the brackets, mount them on all the boats, take the wheels with me. I'm not going to leave them at the boats because somebody could easily just take that off unless I put a lock in it or something. But I'd rather take them with me because then I could save a lot of money just buying these and turn all my boats into the same setup. And then we got the cart. Offshore angler cart. Usually it's about $200 online. It's a little expensive. It's definitely a little big. It's bigger than I anticipated when I got it, but it does barely fit in the back of my SUV. But if you have the room for it, absolutely worth it. Total game changer. Me being well accessorized and having many boats and using them a lot, I need that convenience. I like to often go out with bait and trolling gear, so that involves a bait bucket, at least 4 or 5 rods in total. And that's just for starters, not including all the other gear, electronics, rod holders, accessories. So that is a real game changer. It pulls effortlessly, hops up over logs with no problem. Very, very happy I bought that.
This is what my cart would look like typically, loaded up for a day of trout fishing. It's got everything I need, can make plenty more room if I have to. It's great on the trails. Pushes along fine, pulls along great. I used this cart a bunch this spring for striper fishing. Really came in handy. Was able to bring all my gear in a single trip and plenty of other extras like my live well setup. I'm able to keep all the bait I need alive all day. As you can see, I've got it accessorized with Scotty mounts because I Scotty mount everything. I actually fish right off of this cart and even bring out my fish finder, as you can see. Little fun fact about these herring, aka alewives, the sawbellies that we use for the trout is actually the exact same fish. Sawbellies are alewives. And if you ever handled these fish a bunch in spring striper fishing, you learn why they call them sawbellies.
One other thing I wanted to talk about that I overlooked with the gear is the net itself. Now here, I really prefer a rubber coated net like this. Not necessary. The biggest thing I want is a handle that can extend. Makes it much easier to land a fish by yourself, especially with a longer rod. That right there. You want the net long enough so that when you net a fish, you can stow the net hands free and still have the fish hanging in the water fully. It's a big thing. A lot of these fish we're catching in the summer. Water gets pretty hot. You really need to emphasize proper handling. So I want to be able to catch my fish, get it in the net, let it relax for a minute, then worry about getting the hook out. And I make sure I always have all my gear out, my pliers, snips, whatever I need. We're not spending 30 seconds to a minute looking for that while the fish isn't even in the water. Usually I have a measuring board on deck already out. So basically you want it the handling process needs to go as quickly as possible. And, you know, once you're into late July through August, you may want to consider, if you are going to even keep fishing, keeping them in the net entirely.
If you guys liked what you've seen in this video, make sure to sub to the channel for more content like this. Like the video and leave a comment below if you have any questions or any suggestions on what you'd like to see in future videos. Thanks for watching.